Final speaker is a New Orleans native, serves as a sideline reporter for the NFL on Fox Sports, sideline reporter for the New Orleans Pelicans on Fox Sports New Orleans. She's the contributing writer for FoxSports.com and previously served as a news and sports anchor on Fox 8 New Orleans. Began her career as a political reporter and news anchor, grew up in Mobile, attended LSU, captained the cheerleading squad, named Miss LSU, homecoming queen, earned her Master of Science in Broadcast Journalism from Northwestern University in Chicago. She's won multiple Edward R. Murrow Awards and Associated Press Awards. Of course, she'll talk about the Pelicans and the Saints, and she's busy with the NFL too. She's very busy, but it's great to have her with us today. The Saints, of course, will host Washington Monday night at 7:15. Pelicans 0-2 in the preseason, for what that's worth. Play Friday again in New York against the Knicks. Please give a warm quarterback club welcome to Jen Hale. Jen?
Apologies for being late. I didn't realize the quarterback club had switched locations. I went to the cannery. I was putting that Northwestern education to use when I skipped right over that very important fact that Ken had texted me, not relying on my LSU skills. So thank you all for having me. Please forgive me, I apologize. Boy, yeah, what an exciting time. All of our teams look really strong. I know the Pelicans are 0-2, but I don't put a ton of stock in preseason. Just happy to finally start getting a look at these guys gelling. A couple of players I hope you keep eyes on, of course, Anthony Davis and Drew Holiday are staples, always going to be the leaders of this team, but I've been really encouraged the past two games, what I've seen out of a couple of newcomers and guys coming back from injury. Frank Jackson, of course, missed all of last season. I thought he was really aggressive in that first game in his debut. Not shying away at all, even taking threes. I think he's going to be an important young talent for us to develop as time goes forward. Also, the addition of Julius Randle, huge for us. Keep your eyes on him, not only on the court, he's been bringing the ball up, he's been playing at multiple positions, but he's really emerging as that locker room leadership that we lost when Rajon Rondo left. And to me, the loss of Rondo is going to be much more painful and hard to recover from versus Boogie Cousins. Rondo did so much in the locker room. The guys listened to him. I don't think the Pelicans were counting on losing him. I think when they brought Elfrid Payton in, they were thinking he would be leading the twos, the backup behind Rondo. So of course, Elfrid being a local guy, we're all pulling for him. Hopefully he can develop into a leader and into that starting position. But it was really encouraging to me to see how Julius Randle was taking control of the team and leading it on the court and off the court. As far as the Saints go, isn't it awesome that we're looking at a home Monday night football game and we should see Drew Brees surpassing Peyton Manning for that very important record. The football gods, the schedulers smiling upon us that it could be a home game. That's going to be fantastic. And to get Mark Ingram back, of course, going to be huge for the Saints. He and Alvin Kamara were the last two at the airport on Monday. I think everybody knows the story about Mark. His suspension was up by 120 seconds. So he met the team at the airport and he and Alvin were the last two there talking. You love to see that type of bond and that type of friendship. When guys play for each other, you get your best results. A couple of folks that, when you take your eye off the ball, so to speak, that I've been really impressed with this season. Ryan Ramczyk has just developed unbelievably. And I'm always interested in hearing and listening to what folks outside of the South when I'm at my NFL or college game. Unfortunately, I don't get any SEC, no LSU, which is probably a good thing, because I don't know that I could not be biased. That's all ESPN and Fox, so I get a lot of Pac-12. But listening to folks, everyone is just so impressed with the way Ramczyk's playing, what he's doing. Taysom Hill, wow, that kid is just everywhere. Such a talented, versatile athlete. Really impressed with the way he's developed and excited to see what he can do in the coming weeks and months. Of course, it's all about staying healthy and playing your best football at the end. So fingers and toes crossed that the football gods smile upon us and both LSU and Tulane and the Saints can all stay healthy for that stretch there at the end. You don't want to have to go into the fourth quarter trailing, but to me the silver lining, the Saints have scored a ton of points in the fourth quarter. I love the fact that they can do it when they need to, because at some point you're going to find yourself in that position when it's a game for either playoff berths or playoff seeding, home field advantage. So I'm really encouraged, despite that first game against the Bucks. I think when we all got a little nervous, week 1, they really seem to have turned things around and found their groove, and hopefully this defense will just keep improving, keep getting better each and every week. Whenever I come to things like this, if you don't mind, I love to take a moment and for a little personal soapbox platform. I recently had some health issues, and I always like to use these opportunities to encourage people to listen to their bodies. I was diagnosed with cardiomyopathy, which basically means there are several different types of cardiomyopathy, but for me, my type meant the left side of my heart had stretched out and was not pumping enough blood to my body. And I ignored it and ignored it. I just thought, well, everybody's tired, everybody works hard, everybody is trying to fit 30 hours into 24. It's just the way it goes, suck it up. And by the time I got diagnosed, my heart was down to 16% function. So I just encourage folks, especially if you have a family history like I do, but chose to ignore it, please take that seriously. Please be good to your body, listen to your body. The sooner you catch these things, the much better chance you have of being able to come out of it. And I am so blessed, so grateful to God that He chose to basically let me have my life back. For me, it was either a 5-year life expectancy, a heart transplant, or we tried some medication, but medication is only effective in about 1/3 of the people. And they don't know why it's effective for some and not others. Why me at my age, late 30s, and yet an 11-year-old girl had to have a heart transplant? They can't say. So I feel unbelievably blessed that God chose to let me have this second chance. And anytime I have a moment with folks, I just encourage you to take your health seriously. Are there any questions? Anything I can answer?
Hey, Jen, yeah, I thought the Pelicans was improved. I'm over here.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I thought the Pelicans did improve with the loss of Boogie Cousins and Rondo, and getting gains of Julius. So what do you think the ceiling is for this team? I mean, they're a playoff team last year. They even won a game against Golden State. So what's the ceiling for this team?
Well, and let's not forget, they also swept the Portland Trail Blazers. They were the only team to sweep in the first round out of the entire NBA. So yes, they were certainly on the way up, on an upwards trajectory last year. And it was interesting to go back to your point about Boogie. I get asked about that all the time. For the first couple of months, the Boogie Cousins experiment was not working well. The team, it was not gelling, I'll put it that way. And then there was kind of a come to Jesus moment. We were on the road, and I can remember the media sat on the plane waiting for the team for about 2 hours. I believe we were in Washington. And the team was just basically having a players only come to Jesus meeting. And after that, that's when it really started clicking with Boogie and AD and the rest of the team. And then 3 weeks later, he went down with that torn Achilles. So it was crazy and frustrating from an observer standpoint and honestly a fan standpoint. If that injury had happened 3 weeks before, nobody would have been crying, to be honest. And then just when that starts working, that's when he goes down. But I do think the growth we saw in AD, not just on the court, but leadership-wise. AD, I've had him from day one when he walked in. Such a great person. Not necessarily a natural leader. I think that was a bit outside of his comfort zone to speak up, to call other players out, or to find a way to encourage them that is calling them out, but still productive, not causing waves. And I think having Boogie there took a lot of pressure off his shoulders to have a running mate, a sidekick in that, so to speak. And I think he really benefited from that experience. So even though a lot of people would say the team's better off without him, I'm glad we had him for the amount we did, because I think we saw a lot of growth mentally and off the court from Anthony Davis. And he certainly soaked up a lot of lessons from Rajon Rondo as well. As far as seeding for this year, gosh, I'm hoping, I'm cheering, I'm rooting, I'm praying that we do even better than last year. You want to keep building, of course, right? And I think we have all the potential to do it. You got to watch injuries, and you've got to watch how this Western Conference shapes up. It is so tough between the Warriors, now the Lakers, the Rockets. They're our very first test in the regular season on the road. versus Chris Paul and James Harden. It's going to be tough sledding. It's big boy basketball, that's for sure. But the good news is for fans, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch, and I think the Pelicans will be as competitive as ever. As I mentioned earlier, I'm really encouraged at the way Julius Randle is leading this team, because with losing Rondo, not only was I concerned about that leadership on the court, but who steps up in the locker room. And so far, Julius has stepped right in. You would not think he was the new guy, and the players are accepting that and embracing that. So I think we're in a really good position. I think it's going to be a good season. Anybody else?
In the Saints game on Sunday, on that last touchdown, did the officials miss a delay of game, or did Drew get the ball off when it hit 0?
I wish I could answer that, and I have to tell you I wasn't. I had the Cardinals Seahawks game, so I was watching the Saints game, don't tell anybody, on my phone. During my college games, I watch LSU on my phone, and during my NFL games, I watch the Saints very surreptitiously. So I'm sorry, I did not see that one. It's one of the highlights I have to go back and watch. Yes, sir?
Yeah, Jen, thank you for coming. Let me ask you, have you ever lived in Southern California?
I've never lived there. Fox Sports is headquartered out of there, so I spend a lot of time there. But this is home.
This is, and leading into the question about Anthony Davis, looking down the road. When LeBron James signed with LA, I'm listening to the radio, ESPN, one of your colleagues, trying to explain this to a Cleveland person who's basically crying, said, I got a tattoo of LeBron James on my back, all this, I named my son after LeBron, all this stuff. And the ESPN guy goes, who's living in Southern California, is, you just don't get it. Have you walked the beaches of Malibu or Hollywood, and it's like a different world. Now, New Orleans, we're not Oklahoma City, we're not Cleveland, I hope, but is it eventually, do these guys, and Anthony Davis now lives in Southern California, and I want to bring up Drew Brees, who I don't understand. He's going to be a Hall of Famer here, we love him, he's such a good guy. Like Archie, plant your seeds here. I'm worried that as soon as Drew Brees retires, he'll keep a condo maybe in the warehouse district, but he's moving back to Southern California. What is it about Southern California? The guy on the radio telling this Cleveland fan is, you don't get it because the people are there are richer, better, it's a different world. If you have anything on the ball, you move down there, if you turn your back, you come back and you visit your parents and your grandparents, but you plant your seeds. And I'm worried that Anthony Davis, can you explain that psychologically? What do they see over there that New Orleans ain't got?
I can try. I share your fear about Drew. Yes, Anthony Davis did buy a home in LA this offseason. Yes. And his contract is up at the end of the season. However, well, before we panic, I can tell you probably half the NBA players across the league have homes in Southern California. That's where they go in the off season. The Pelican. The weather is beautiful. I think, I don't want to be negative. There are high taxes, really high taxes. It's a beautiful atmosphere. It's a place where you feel like you're in the buzz. Everything's happening around you. You see all the famous people around you. I think New Orleans is unique and similar to LA in this respect, that you can go out around town and not get harassed. There are stars everywhere in LA, and I think in New Orleans, folks just don't care that much. But when you go to a Cleveland, when you look at Nick Saban in Tuscaloosa, when you go to a Milwaukee, it's very hard for these folks to have normal lives. They are basically housebound unless they want to be descended upon 24/7. As far as the draw to LA, I think a part of it is the feeling that if you go to ground zero, so to speak, there are more lucrative endorsement deals. So many of these players make so much more money off of endorsements, depending on injury and contracts, than they can in the long run in a playing career. That they'll say the weather, and yes, it's beautiful, but to me, it isn't that big of to me, it's very fake, to be honest with you. Like I said, I'm there quite a bit for work. Very grateful for my job, love Fox Sports, nothing against LA, but I think different strokes for different folks. And for whatever reason that has that star draw, that star power, you go out to dinner and there's Mel Gibson and Jay-Z and Jennifer Lopez all at the same restaurant. Some folks really like that. You know, different people like different things. I know that's probably not a very good answer, I'm sorry, but that's the best one I can give you because I sure hope not. But I think it comes down to more than money with AD. Because let's face it, I think anywhere he can command top dollar, he'll get a max contract from anybody who has the money to offer. For Anthony Davis, it's about winning, and he wants to be with a franchise and an organization that gives him that opportunity to win. So this is such a pivotal year for the Pelicans, not just because every year you want to be successful, but I think we have to show AD we're serious about being a premier NBA franchise. And I think one of the growing pains, and I have seen this improve, but I think one of the growing pains is how differently NBA franchises in the NBA world operate versus NFL franchises in the NFL world. And of course, given that so many of the Saints folks continued on with the Pelicans, there was a real learning curve of, wait, that's not how we do it in the NBA. I don't like that. I don't want that. And I do think everybody is open to changing. Everybody is talking about this now. And I think the Pelicans have come so far from when the Saints first took them over, and it was really being run much more like an NFL franchise. And maybe from a dollars and cents bookkeeping wise, there's not a ton of difference, but there really is in the culture and in the accoutrements that you give your players. It's night and day, and you have to offer what the other NBA teams offer, if not more, when you're a small market like New Orleans is, because you are competing with the LAs, with the Warriors, with even, you know, the Knicks and the Nets. They may not be very good franchises, but they have the appeal of living in New York City. Big media market, endorsement deals, that type of thing. You have to compete with that. Yes, sir.
Some years ago, I met a guy who helped my son develop a football player. He said, you got to go meet this guy, Schwack. So we met Schwack. Schwack was all conference, all Canadian, EN, Canadian Football League. And his son is Eldridge Payton. So Schwack worked with Ronnie. His father's an unbelievable football player. He passed it down to his son. He's going to definitely help the Pelicans. And the Pelicans happen to be in New Orleans, and we're a destination city. There's no question about it. We're a destination city. The only thing LA has over us is that you can play in a golf game 675 years from now, and it's going to be okay to play. I mean, because they don't have anything. It doesn't rain, it seems like they always have wonderful weather. But I will promise you that Eldridge is going to bring something to the Pelicans. Youth, great kid, works with the community, unbelievable things, so we're not going to miss a beat there, okay? But you went through, you said 3 different things, personally, and you didn't tell us if you had a heart transplant. You didn't tell us if it was an act of God Almighty, because I'm a believer in that. So tell us where you are.
I'm sorry, yes, I left out a very important point. And yes, I'm pulling for Alfred. I think everybody is, and I think this is a place he could take his next jump. In terms of the LA New York thing that you mentioned, quick funny story. When Cam Jordan first came to the Saints, I asked him how does he like New Orleans, and at the time he was very unhappy here, and I think it was just the culture shock. It was different. Now he loves it and loves being able to raise his family here. Now he has 3 kids. When he got here, he was a young guy and he's like, Jen, I don't understand. There are no clubs. I mean, where do I go out? Where do I meet girls? I don't get it. Where are the juice bars? So it's just different. And every place I think has its uniqueness, thank God. We don't all want to be the same. And everything has its plus and minuses. So I think for some people, it's just a matter of needing to be here to learn to appreciate all of the bonus points that we have. Whereas in LA, New York, those bonus points are a little bit more obvious. In terms of health, I'm sorry, I did leave out the most important part. So yes, so my 3 options at diagnosis were 5 years to live, heart transplant, or we could try this medication that only works in a third of the people. It worked for me. So I did not have to have a transplant. I'm doing great. My heart is right below the quote-unquote normal level, and it's still shrinking, so I'm hoping to get to normal. And as far as an act of God, I believe it was God allowing the medicine to work, making the medicine work for me. Like I said, there's so much not known about cardiomyopathy, and that was one of the big things. Not only did I have a fabulous doctor here, but thankfully through my work connections, I was able to visit with some cardiologists in other cities in leading places, and no one could give me an answer about why is the medicine effective in some people and not others. Because it's a 2-year, they call it heart remodeling, and it's a 2-year process. So part of the hardest thing for me was not knowing if it was going to work. I kind of felt like, okay, God, if I have to have a transplant, I can accept that. I can do that. But let me know. To sit in limbo for 16, 18 months, that's really tough. And that's exactly what happened. So I guess God teaching patience and trust. But it is. It's a slow process, and there's not enough known about it. And so if I can, A, encourage people to take symptoms seriously and get their health checked, but B, also encourage research. Just a point of comparison. So my father, uncle, and grandfather all died from heart attacks 50 or below. Because I'm female, don't smoke, never tried a drug, it never crossed my mind in my 30s I would need to worry about it. When my father was diagnosed, there were no options, not even transplant. So he just had to sit and wait for the heart attack. And he had his heart attack about 3.5 years after diagnosis. So when I look and see what a difference here I am, 20, 30 years later, wow. And basically my life is now the same. So thank goodness for research, thank goodness for medical advancements, and selfishly, I hope we keep those going. Any other questions? Thank y'all so much for having me, I appreciate it.